Hi guys, hope you're well. You ever heard this intellectual position that's sort of like a consequence from moral relativism? Um, it's basically the position is you don't have a right to say anything about another culture's practices, or who are you to judge? How can you say? How can you make an ethical judgment about other cultures' ethical frameworks? It's purely subjective, so you have no right to attempt to persuade people or even make a judgment that doing things like, I don't know, throwing battery acid, like Sam Harris makes the example, throwing battery acid in women's faces because they want to go to school is wrong, or that selling your children into sex trafficking, human trafficking, so they can be raped is wrong. I've actually literally had someone say this to me. I was so shocked at the time I couldn't come up with a counter argument, and the actual circumstances as well. I was working. But you ever had people who come up with this crazy position to hold? Really immoral. I don't know if they think they're being intellectually sophisticated or what, but it's a disgusting position to hold. Especially discussion if you're either black, gay, bisexual, transgender, or woman. And it was actually a woman who said this to me, and surprised maybe she just didn't think it through, or had someone who took her position to a logical conclusion. Basically, if we look back at the history of like the US and the UK, if people held this position that one culture has no right to attempt to persuade or even make an ethical judgment that another culture's practices are wrong, then if the minority, basically, what I'm saying, sorry, is if the minority didn't attempt to persuade the majority they were wrong, the transatlantic slave trade would still be continuing. If the minority didn't attempt to persuade the majority they were wrong, then non-whites would still be legally discriminated against in the US and UK. If the minority didn't attempt to persuade the majority that they were wrong, then gays, bisexuals, and the transgendered would still be legally discriminated against. If the minority didn't attempt to persuade the majority that they were wrong, then women would still be legally discriminated against. It seems that the only thing that stops these people who hold this intellectual position from attempting to do something about the discrimination and suffering of other human beings is nationality. If these practices like human trafficking and things like this, and selling your children into prostitution to be raped and other disgusting things, if this was happening in their neighborhood or to their loved ones, or to even people on the other side of the country, but in their own country still, but on the other side of their country, then they would agree that the police need to do something. They would agree to make an ethical value judgment, to proclaim an ethical value judgment that what's going on is wrong and shouldn't be happening. They would see no problem with that. But because it takes place in another country's borders, they consider it immoral. They actually consider it immoral, wrong either intellectually or whatever. They consider it wrong to make an ethical judgment that suffering and discrimination other people undergo in other countries is actually wrong. Now I'm saying to you as someone who's black, someone who's bisexual, and somebody who has a mother who they love very much, that I'm glad that there was a minority in this country who didn't hold that intellectual position.